Live from Denver's Cherry Creek neighborhood, you are watching the Kyle Malnati Show. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and we're pleased to have David Burch and Heidi Burch as our guests on the show today. David and Heidi own 260 units and counting in central Denver. They started investing in 2008. I'll let them tell more of the story, but David and Heidi, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, tell me a little bit about your real estate story, David. How did you get started here in Denver, and kind of what led you to coming here?
We were living in New York and had 3 successful pizza stores, and we got my brother to come and work for us. And once I taught him how to manage people, I asked him if we could take off, and he said we started looking at ski towns, and we wanted a real town, and we found Breckenridge, and we moved to Breckenridge in 2000, and we were just enjoying the income from our pizza stores and having fun in Breckenridge. And then after a few years of just coasting by, we thought we should look at some new investments, and all of our friends in Breckenridge all owned vacation rentals, and we thought maybe that was the way to go, so we started studying on condos, and we quickly learned that multifamily was definitely the way to go. So then we had to research cities, and Denver popped up, and it was right down the hill.
Right.
So it made a lot of sense. And we bought 64 units in 2008, and now we decided we were doing so well, we decided to sell our pizza stores and invest more, and now we're at 260 units in Denver.
That's great. And Heidi, I work with a ton of couples that operate family businesses together, but you're actually the first couple that we've had on the show. And how would you say that you and David consult with each other in your businesses? And you know, my thought process is that if couples are united, if they're equally yoked together, they can do so much more together than they could as 2 individuals. So how do the 2 of you consult with each other when it comes to buying an apartment building?
Well, we're together pretty much 24/7.
You like each other, which is nice.
We do. And because we have the apartment buildings, we don't have other work that we do, so we are together most of the time. So we tend to agree, we tend to see eye to eye on most things. So there isn't, it's been easy for us, and the timing has been very easy getting in. And we actually are not the only ones in our business.
Oh.
Joe, David's brother, is a very large part. He does most of the numbers and financing for us.
And Joe's out of state, right? He's still back in New York.
He's in New York.
He's in New York. And then we have also parents involved in the buildings as well.
Sure.
So it's more than just Dave and I. It's kind of a family affair.
What's it like working with a family partnership? Do you feel like it adds and benefits you, or do you feel like, you know, sometimes it's uncomfortable at Thanksgiving?
No, not at all, actually.
Okay.
We've been really lucky. It's been
Yeah.
successful. Our timing was extremely
really
lucky.
Good.
So it's been easy so far.
Good. Well, you know, I've always kind of thought you've got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be, and you've got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good. And you know, I think that the success of your business really is a testament to the success of your marriage. I mean, I would think that the 2 of you investing together would never work if you didn't have a strong relationship first. And I would imagine that that always is key, and that that's always something that's important to focus on long before any other business ventures. And so I can see that in you. You know, when you walk up to an apartment building that I'm about to show to you, you guys are hand in hand or arm in arm, and you can truly tell that this is, you know, kind of this universal thing where your business and your marriage, you know, where one starts and the other ends and vice versa, it's all just blended in there. David, when you started buying apartment buildings, like you said, it was 2008, you had grown about 60 units, and you were managing not the day-to-day operations, but you were managing a couple of resident managers, which was very much in vogue, you know, 10 years ago and longer. We don't see many resident managers in the business anymore. My partner Greg and I are starting to say that there's actually kind of this concept of the death of the resident manager, and I think it's because of management companies becoming so good at what they do. You recently, a couple of years ago, decided to hire Cornerstone Apartment Services, which is a phenomenal management company. How has that helped you grow your portfolio over time?
Well, when we see a new building we're considering purchasing, we don't have to worry about how am I going to find a resident manager? Besides that, once we hit 100 units, it's just too much work. I couldn't do it anymore. Just the amount of time to post ads on Craigslist would be hours a day.
Yeah. And then all the legal issues that you might have with different tenant relation types of things, or fair housing and all of that. So I completely agree. Once you get to about 100 units, and for multifamily owners in Denver, if you own 10 to 30 unit buildings, pretty quickly you own 3 or 4, and you're hitting up against that 100 unit barrier. So I think it was really smart, and I think that Jim Lorenzen and Charlie Hogan run an outstanding shop in central Denver. That's also contributed to the way that you've bought buildings, right? Because
they've been with us. They just don't manage the apartment buildings. They've been with us during the purchase of the buildings. They go with us generally to look at the buildings. They know what rents, what doesn't rent, which streets are.
Yeah, some buildings we would have purchased had they
We've shied away from a few buildings.
Correct.
Because they've said, no, we cannot rent on this
This
block.
particular block might have a problem with too many homeless people because of its location, things like that.
Yeah, and having the value of someone who does business on a large scale, they not only manage your building, but they manage others. They have so much more information than you could have, and you're using that to your advantage. You're taking the scale of their business and saying, be my preferred advisor and help me through this process. And I see them at the inspections, and a lot of times if we run into problems on roofs or sewer lines, they're saying this is our trusted vendor that handles this and does it in an inexpensive, and efficient way. So I think that just adds a ton of value, and then you don't have to deal with the learning curve that a lot of
we've
owners
learned
do.
so much from them. It's
Yeah.
And by using them, we make a lot less mistakes,
We do.
especially remodeling. Last year we remodeled 100 units. We would have
Holy
never been able to handle that on our own.
Yeah, well, and with what's going on in Denver right now, with all of the construction boom, it's really hard to find good contractors.
It is, and it's difficult for everybody
Right, and Cornerstone, fortunately, they have a lot of folks on staff that do that, and even the subs that they work with, because they do so many unit turns, they get the call back first. When someone gives Cornerstone gives them a call, they know, okay, we got to get going there. So that there's definitely value in that, and you wouldn't have that as much if you were doing things on your own.
No, not at all.
Heidi, what do you think you do differently than other apartment building owners?
I don't know. We don't know very many apartment owners.
Okay.
So I don't know what we do differently. We are constantly trying to buy new apartment. We are constantly trying to purchase more. So I guess maybe we do that differently.
We're always trying to expand, and some people seem to be comfortable
sitting back.
That's a great point, that there are a lot of people that will just kind of sit back and say, okay, I've grown to the 5 buildings or the 2 buildings or whatever the number is, and I'm satisfied. And I think for you always had, from my perspective of talking, you've always had the door open. You've always said, make sure to continue to keep us posted on any new opportunities. We'll tell you if it doesn't work, Kyle, but tell us about new listings, tell us about deals that are off the market, because we never want to say no and have you not call us first. And I think that is something that's different. There's a lot of people who kind of say, no, you know what, I'm content, or I don't have the scalability to add another building, because then that would mean I'm not getting home at 6 o'clock at night. Now I'm getting home at 8 o'clock because I'm doing all this on my own. So I think because of the fact that you've set up a great management platform, and you've got people that you trust doing the things that they do well, you can keep your eyes focused on growing the portfolio and expanding. What advice would both of you give to a young couple that's in their mid-20s or early 30s looking at buying their first rental house or buying their first duplex, or maybe their first 10-unit building, and they're shaking in their boots, they don't know what they're doing? What advice would you give to a young aspiring investor?
They should pick a mentor that owns apartment buildings.
That's
I think
good.
That's the first step. I also think they shouldn't make any decisions until they've asked as many people as possible. I still do that. We still do that.
Yeah.
We always
Absolutely.
bounce everything off as many heads as we can to make the best decision. We had a small business, so it seemed like an easy business for us to transition in and manage our own, but I don't know if that's the best advice for anyone else. Our first advice was manage your own building for the first year, and we did for several years. But I don't know if that'd be good advice for everyone. besides a mentor, I think they should also consider not getting into the remodel game right off the bat.
Yeah.
You know, consider a stabilized building first.
Or maybe if it's a 20, 30-year-old with not a whole lot of disposable income, we were told to buy a fourplex to start off. You could live in one of the units and manage it yourself and grow from there.
And get conventional financing to do it, which makes it a lot easier to get into the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. We were sitting here at Stewart Title, which is where we're broadcasting, a month ago, and we sold a triplex up in Berkeley that the guy that was buying it was in his early 20s, had a great job, and he was buying the property to live in the main unit and rent out the other two. And I've met countless investors that have done that.
They're harder to find here, but there's a lot of duplexes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that keeping that investor mindset when you're looking at real estate is important. So I think that would be probably the overreaching advice is just, you know, what you don't know, ask, you know, and then obviously make sure that you make cautious, wise decisions, and using the counsel of others is one of the best ways to do that. What question would you guys like to ask our guest next month?
Would you consider an offer on your apartment?
We're always looking.
That's right, you're always looking. So, would you sell? And I like that too, because maybe I could just broker a deal. That would be compelling podcast material if I was able to broker a deal on a podcast.
I always want to know everybody's opinion. Where is Denver going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Good. Well, I'll ask that to our next guest, and I'll share it back with you. I believe that leaders are readers. What book or books are you guys reading right now that you really enjoy? What's on your bedside table that you're reading?
Right now I'm reading Italian for Dummies
Good.
and La Spostra in Casa, which is an Italian fiction book. So.
And why Italian? Why are you reading Italian for Dummies? You're not a dummy, I know that, but why are you trying to learn Italian?
I spoke Italian many years ago.
So you already know
it. Relearning.
You're relearning.
I'm relearning, yes.
Good. And you guys recently just got back from Italy too, right?
We spent almost a month.
Good.
We had a really great vacation.
And when we were prepping for the show, we were talking about the value of being able to take vacation and take time off. Apartment buildings give you that freedom. If you don't, if you're working a regular 9-to-5 job where you're working Monday through Friday, you can't do that. At least not for a month. I don't think you stay employed long, but when you own investment real estate, you can chart your own course. You can decide, I want to go and spend time in Italy. And David, what are you reading right now?
I'm reading The Surfer's Guide to Costa Rica.
I sense a future vacation coming up.
We're trying to plan a trip for this winter.
Cool. And have you surfed before?
We have several times in the last couple of years. We've been to Hawaii, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and for the time of year, Costa Rica seems to be the choice for this winter, so we'll see.
Nice. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It's great.
Well, I have a quote to share, and I try to share a quote that's picked by our guests. And the amazing business person for GE, Jack Welch, said, "Control your own destiny, or someone else will." And I think that that's a great theme for our show. As the apartments are all about, we're going to take something that may be a little bit of a risk here, but we're going to take that risk, we're going to manage it, we're going to invest our money into it to allow us free time later. I have a career coach that says that you work double time, part time for full time, free time later. And so the whole concept is, do the hard things right now, not because they're hard, but do them because they're the right thing to do so that you have freedom later. And I think that allows you to control your own destiny. You both watch the show, I know, so you know that I always have a trick up my sleeve. I have an autographed copy of Jim Collins' book, Built to Last, for you guys. I don't know if you've read it before, but our last guest, Paul Books, he and his wife, Lacey, run a charity called Youth Roots, and it's all about helping high school kids. They run these they run these youth boards in different areas of Denver where high school students figure out what high school students are facing as problems right now. And it can be things as violence at home or in school. It can be kids that don't have enough money to eat besides subsidized school lunches. I mean, there's all sorts of different themes that happen each year that they do this. And so the reason I'm saying all that is at Paul and Lacey's charity event, I was a silent auction winner of a list of Jim Collins autographed books, and so that was autographed by Jim, who's from Boulder, Colorado. So
Thanks
I
a
hope
lot.
you guys enjoy it. Yeah. Well, thank you for watching our show today. We really appreciate Stuart Title for giving us the time and space to broadcast today. As I like to say, I will see you around the neighborhood.